What's up everybody, welcome back. So in the last video we added our new grenade type, and in this video I want to set up the inventory array on the character so we can carry different types of equipment in the same way that we have our weapon inventory. And if we have that set up, then we can use it later to set up our weapon wheel and the equipment selection. So that's pretty much what we're gonna do today. If you like this series, please consider leaving a like, and if you want to get your hands on the project files, you can become a member of the YouTube channel or Patreon, and then you will get access to the premium channels in the Discord and also a download for the project. So let's just start today's video. So first of all, one small change, just so everything makes a little bit more sense. If we go to our input actions, I'm gonna rename the input throw grenade to input use equipment, so we can use it for multiple things later. So this is going to be use equipment, and then we have that one set up. So now we can go to the characters and open our hero base character, and we're going to start in here by adding a bunch of new variables. So what we're basically going to do is set up our equipment in the same way as we have our weapon inventory. So we're going to set up an array for equipment names and the sizes and the ammo and stuff like that. So we can use it as a separate array and make separate selections in there. So the first thing we're going to need is a new variable. And I'm going to call this one the equipment inventory size. So this is how many different types of equipment you can carry, and that's going to be an integer. Then the next one is going to be our equipment inventory. So I have to scroll all the way up again. Equipment inventory. So that's an array of names. So we're going to turn it into a name and then an array. And we want to make sure that this is set to replicated. So replication replicated. And the next one we need is our active equipment index. So that's going to be an integer. So I'm just going to duplicate this one. The active equipment index. And again, we want to make sure that this one is set to replication. So replication replicated. So the equipment size does not need to replicate. The inventory and the index do need to replicate. And then we want to add arrays for the ammo. So those are going to be integers as well, and we do want to replicate them. So I'm going to duplicate the active equipment index, and this is going to be the ammo equipment. So that is my current amount of ammo. So this is going to be an array because we can carry multiple types of equipment. And then I'm also going to duplicate this once more, and that's going to be the ammo equipment maximum values. So I have an array stored with the maximum values as well. Both of those need to be replicated, so both of the ammo arrays. And then there's two more variables we need, and that's going to be the active equipment type and the active equipment class. So let's grab the active equipment type, and that's going to be a name. So active equipment type. This does not need to be an array, so a single name variable, and we're gonna replicate it. And the last one is the active equipment class. So let's create one new variable, active equipment class, and that's a class reference, so an actor, and then a class reference over here, the purple one. And now that should be good to go. So with all of the variables in place, we want to create a new function so we can add new equipment to our equipment inventory. So let's create a new function. And I'm going to call this one add equipment to inventory. And we're going to use two inputs over here. The first one is the new inventory index. So that's an integer. And then the second one is going to be the equipment row name. And that's going to be a name variable. So first of all, we can grab our equipment inventory from the array, and we're simply going to set an array element in here. So we can plug everything in, the index and the name. So make sure we enable size to fit over here. And then we want to grab the equipment name from our equipment info table. So we're going to get a table row. And we're going to select our equipment info table and plug in the row name over here. There we go. So now we can break the structure. And from here we can grab the ammo value. So we need the ammo maximum. And just like we did with the weapons, we're simply going to set the ammo in here to the maximum value. And if we use some kind of a grenade pickup and that doesn't give us full ammo, we can simply override it afterwards. So we're going to grab the ammo equipment and we're going to set an array element. Plug it into the row found pin. So the item is going to be the return value from the structure and the index comes from the... Oh, that was freaky. From the input of our event. So simply plug it in over here. And we want to do the same thing for the maximum ammo array. So we have the maximum value stored as well. So plug that into the item, plug in the index and make sure we enable size to fit for both of them. So this should pretty much be the function. So we can compile and save this one. And now we want to go to the event graph and we want to make sure that we set our equipment inventory size. So we're going to do that inside of the event begin play. And if we scroll all the way to the right, over here we're also setting our weapon inventory size. So this seems like a good place to me to add this. Yeah, that should be fine. So we're simply going to grab our equipment inventory size and we can set a value over here. So you can choose to add it to a data table and give different characters, different equipment inventory sizes, whatever you prefer. So I'm simply going to set it to 2 over here so I can carry 2 different types of equipment. So that's good to go as well. And now we want to go to our server setup weapon inventory function. So that's the function that's called in begin play to set up the inventory from the player at the start of the game. So over here we want to make sure that we also set up our equipment array. So we're simply going to do that at the end from the return node. And the first thing we want to do is grab our weapon loadout from the variables. So these are the weapons that I actually have selected. This is not my entire inventory, just the weapons I have selected in the weapon wheel. And for the loadout, our third index slot is going to be our equipment slot. So we're going to have 4 slots in there, 0, 1, 2, 3. 0 is for the pistol, 1 and 2 is for primary weapons, and then 3 is going to be for equipment. So we can simply grab a set array element in here and move over the execution pin. So let's move the return node out of the way for now. And so we can simply set the index in here to 3 manually. That should be good. And for now, I'm simply going to start the game with the normal grenade. So I'm going to type grenade underscore normal and make sure that I enable size to fit over here. So now it's assigned to my loadout. And the grenade normal refers to the data table. So I think that's in here, equipment info table. So the row name in here needs to match what you fill in over here. So it's assigned to the loadout, and now we also want to set it to our equipment. So we're going to grab our new function that we just created. Or we didn't just create it, we are going to create it. No, we did create it, I just didn't name it the same as I did in my example. Sorry, so we're going to grab the add equipment to inventory, plug it in over here. So after it's assigned to the loadout, we also want to make sure that we actually carry the equipment. So again, we want to type the grenade normal in here, and the inventory index can be 0, that's fine. And then we're going to grab a for loop. Oh, not a for each loop, but a for loop. So let's right click and search for loop. So we want to start at index 1 because we also already assigned index 0 over here. So the first index is going to be 1. And the last index is going to be our equipment inventory size minus 1. So let's subtract 1 from this and plug it in the last index. And then we're simply going to assign empty slots to the remaining equipment slots that we have left. So again, we can grab our set array element node, plug it into the loop body, we can hook up the index, and we want to grab our equipment inventory, plug it in over here, and we're simply going to assign an empty slot. So type in empty over here, and that should be good to go. Now we can grab the return node and make sure we hook it up to the completed pin over here, and then we should be good to go. So right now, after setting up the weapon inventory, we assign the grenade to our loadout slot, we assign it to our actual equipment array, and then for the remaining slots we have left, we're assigning empty slots. Okay, so that should be good to go as well. Let's compile and save this, and now I want to go into the HUD to make sure that we can also change the HUD icon and the grenade ammo and stuff like that. So let's go to our widgets folder and open the in-game HUD over here. So first in the designer, we want to grab our grenade icon and turn it into a variable so we can change it. So I'm gonna rename this. Thank you. And this is going to be my image equipment icon. So this needs to be a variable. If we rename it, it automatically becomes a variable. So that should be good. Compile and let's go to the graph. So we're going to create a small function in here to update the HUD icon and the equipment if we change the equipment in our slot. So let's create a new function, and I'm going to call this function update equipment info. So we're going to give this two inputs, and the first one is going to be the equipment name. That's a bit weird. That should actually be the equipment ammo, sorry. So equipment ammo. There we go. This is going to be a text variable. And then the second one is going to be the equipment icon, and that's going to be the HUD icon. So equipment icon. And we want to turn this into a 2D texture, and that's going to be a soft object reference. So 2D texture. And make sure that we select the soft object reference over here. So first of all, we can grab our text for the ammo grenade. So that should be in the variables from earlier somewhere. So text ammo. Okay, let's just make a search for it. Text ammo grenade over here. And we're gonna set the text for this. Plug it in and simply plug in the value from the input. And then we want to change the icon as well. So we just turned that into a variable, the image equipment icon. Oh, I probably misspelled that. So image equipment icon over here. And we can drag off from here and set a brush from a soft texture. So that way we don't have to load the texture first. It will be taken care of for us. So we can simply plug in the equipment icon, and that should be good. So this is the entire function we need. We can compile and save it and close our HUD. And then we want to go back to our hero base character to set up the rest of this. So we're going to need a little bit of empty room in the event graph. We're going to create an event to select our equipment, and we also want to create a client RPC so we can call the HUD to update. So let's do the last one first. We're going to create a custom event, and that's going to be client update HUD equipment. Update HUD equipment. And for this one, we want to set the replication to run on the owning client. So for the inputs, we're going to input our equipment ammo and the equipment icon. So those are the text and the 2D texture. Equipment ammo and equipment icon. So the ammo is a text variable and the icon is a 2D texture soft object reference. And then first thing, we're going to grab our in-game HUD. So that should be in our variables. And we're going to call this in begin play. The HUD should be valid, but you never know with Unreal. So we're going to make sure that it's valid. So let's grab an isValid node. Oh, sorry. Is valid, and the one with the question mark, I just like that one a little bit better. So if it's not valid, we're going to delay until next tick. So we are sure this will update if we call it. And then from the HUD, we can call our update equipment info function that we just created and simply plug in the inputs from the event over here. So now we have an event the server can call to tell the clients to update. So that should be good to go. The next thing we need is an event to select equipment. So let's create a new custom event and call this one select equipment. We only need one input in here, and that's going to be the new index. New index, and that's an integer like so. The first thing we're going to do is set our active equipment index to the new index. So let's drag in a setter and simply plug it in. Then we're going to grab our weapon loadout array. So these are the weapons we actually have assigned to our weapon wheel, for example. And for this one, we can set an array element. And as I mentioned before, the equipment will always be in our third slot. So we're simply going to set the index over here to 3. And then for the name, we can grab our equipment inventory. So let's go down to the new variables we created. The equipment inventory, we're going to get a copy from our active equipment index over here and store that inside of our weapon loadout array. And then we want to make sure that we grab some info from the data table again. So we're going to get a table row. And we're going to get it from our equipment info table. And then we want to plug in the row name from our equipment inventory over here. Grab the structure and let's break it. And now we can set some variables. So first let's grab our active equipment type. And we're going to simply plug it in over here, and we should have that in here. So we can simply grab it from the structure and store it. And then we also want to grab the class, but inside of the structure, we have our class as a soft object or a soft class reference. So we're going to async load asset, plug it in over here, and this will load the class. So from the completed pin, we can set our active equipment class. Let's plug it in over here. We do need to cast it, by the way, because this is just an object, and over here we have an actor. So we need to make sure that we cast this to an actor, and that's a class. So we can turn it into a pure cast and then simply hook it up. That should be good to go. And then from the completed pin, the completed pin is going to set the class, and from the other pin that's going to execute immediately while the asset is loading, we can continue. So we're going to grab a branch over here. And what we want to do here is check if we are locally controlled. So we're going to make sure the server always calls this function. So the server sets up the arrays for the equipment and handles the switching. And the server can be locally controlled, but he also cannot. So obviously we need to make sure that if we are the server, we can simply call the update equipment on the HUD directly. And if we are a client, so we are not locally controlled, we're going to call the client version. So in here, let's grab our update equipment info from our HUD. And if we are the server, we can call this one directly, like I mentioned. So update equipment info, plug this one into the true pin. So if we are the server and we are locally controlled, we can use this one and grab the equipment ammo from the ammo maximum over here. And for the integer, that should be good. You don't need to change anything in here. And the equipment icon, we also have it in our structure. So simply hook it up and that should be good. So if we are a client, we're going to continue from the false bin. And in that case, we want to call the replicated event that we just created. So we're going to call client update HUD. Oh, really? And then update HUD equipment. And again, we can simply grab these pins and hook them up. There we go. So that should be good to go. And now all we want to do is actually update the grenade ammo separately. So let's grab the stuff that we have at end of begin play. So to prevent, we're going to do this double. And also because if we actually, let me see. So over here, we're updating the ammo grenade already, but we're going to set the equipment stuff in here to select the current type of equipment. So that way this will automatically be called if we call the equipment function that we just created. So at the end of begin play, we can get rid of this, simply remove it from here. And then we're going to go back to the new function that we just created. If I remember where that is, over here. And if we are the server, we can simply call this directly. So let's plug it in over here. And if we are a client, we have a client version for this already. So we can call client update HUD grenade. And again, plug in the ammo from the grenade over here, and that should be good to go. So this should be the equipment switching event. And we want to make sure that we also have a version of this for the server to call, or actually that server replicated, so the client can call and the server will handle it. So we're going to create a second custom event. And let's simply call this server select equipment. So for this one, we're going to set the replication to run on server. And we also need this input for the new index. So let's create that one, new index. And now we can simply grab the setter and plug that in over here. And then if we don't hook this up like this, but simply grab a new getter for the active equipment index and plug this one into the set array element. There we go. So now we have a normal event and a replicated server event. So in both cases, we can pick what we want to call. So now we need to update our begin play, as I mentioned. So let's look for the begin play event again over here. And we're going to go almost all the way to the end. So over here we have the server branch and the client branch, and we want to put the calls right inside here at the end. So let's do that right after the server is ready. So let's make a little bit of room over here. We're going to call the select equipment event for the server. So select equipment. And we're simply going to set the new index to 0 because that's the only index that we have assigned at the start of the game. And if we are a client, we're going to call the server function. So server select equipment. And again, simply set the index to 0. So we select the first equipment inside of our inventory. Okay, so that was a small change needed. Then we also want to update our assign weapon to loadout event. So this is going to be in preparation for the weapon wheel. So let's look for the event assign weapon to loadout. Over here. And what we want to do in here is make sure that we have the normal one, so not the server replicated one. because the server calls the normal one. So in the end, we always end up over here. What we want to do is check if we are changing the equipment slot or if we are changing a weapon slot. And that's actually pretty simple. If we compare the loadout index, and that's 3, that's going to be our equipment slot. So let's start the event over here with a branch, and we're going to check if the loadout index is equal to 3. And hook it up to our branch. So if this is false, we want to continue like we did before. So then we're changing a weapon inside of our loadout. And if this is true, then we are changing the equipment in our loadout. So then we're going to grab another branch, plug it in over here, and we're going to grab our weapon loadout array. So let's search for that one in the variables. Weapon loadout, so that's one that already existed over here, and we're gonna get the third index from here, so get a copy, and we're gonna check what we currently have assigned and make sure that it's actually different. So let's do an equal to and plug in the equipment from the event over here. So if this is true, we're assigning the same item, so we don't need to do anything. If this is false, we do want to update it. So if it's false, we're going to grab our weapon loadout array and we're going to set an array element. So make sure you hook it up to the false pin. As I mentioned, we're going to set index 3 in our loadout array, and we can grab the item from the input of the event. So that's the weapon row name. In this case, that's the equipment row name, but that doesn't really matter. And after we assign it to the loadout, we can simply call our select equipment event. So select equipment. And we want to grab the index. So we are going to grab our equipment inventory array. And in here, we're going to find the correct index. So find item. And we want to find the weapon row name, or actually the equipment row name. So plug it in from the input of the event. And then the returning index is going to be the index that we want to select in our equipment array. So because we have the server replicated event that calls this event, we are always running this on the server. So that's why we don't need to worry about calling the server or the normal version over here. We already know we are the server no matter what. So we can simply call this version and that should be good. Okay, so we have that set up. Now let's go to our input action throw grenade and make sure that we change that a little bit as well. So for the event graph, we have an input action, and that's not called throw grenade anymore, but that's use equipment. Over here, let me grab my notes quickly. So what we're pretty much going to do is create 2 custom events, one to start the trace and one to start the throwing of the grenade. So right now we're starting the trace when we press the button, and we are going to throw it as soon as we release the button. But because we're going to have different types of equipment later, it depends on what type of equipment we have selected what we're going to do. So first of all, let's create 2 new custom events. And the first one I'm going to call a setup throw grenade. And that's going to be the one that was hooked up to the started pin. So let's move that one over. And then let's create a second custom event. And this is going to be start throw grenade. And that's going to be the one that was hooked up to the completed pin. So let's move that one over as well. So now we have our input action event, and over here we want to grab our active equipment type. So let's grab that one from the variables, and we're going to switch on a name in here. So this is simply a name that we came up with in the data table, and we can add how many ever we want. Right now we only have the grenade, so I'm simply going to add one pin over here, and I'm going to call this the grenade. So the equipment type is grenade. We're going to hook this up to the started pin over here. And if it's actually grenade, we want to call our setup throw grenade event. So we're going to call setup throw grenade. And then the same thing is going to apply for the completed pin. So let's copy the switch on name and plug it into the completed pin, grab the active equipment type. And if this is a grenade, we're going to start throwing it. So that should be good as well. And now for the throwing of the grenade, there's one small thing we want to change. So we want to grab our equipment class. So let's go to our grenade throw event. And in here we're spawning an actor from class. And right now we simply have our grenade set up over here. So we can grab our active equipment class and hook that up right over here. Now this does present us with a problem because we are hooking up a variable over here. It doesn't know what actor is going to be returned over here. So right now we need to cast this. So we want to drag off here and cast to our parent grenade. So cast to grenade parent. And then hook this back up. And after we did the cast, we can grab this pin and hook it back up. So we're actually setting the correct values on the grenade again. Okay, so that should be good as well. Now there's only one small change left, and that's to make the grenade ammo work. So before we had a separate value for the grenade ammo, and right now we have the two arrays, and we can switch between them. So we need to know which one of the indexes we're actually using. And that's also the array we need to change if we throw a grenade, for example. So we're going to search for all of the old variables and replace them with the new array. So let's grab the ammo grenade and find all the references. And then we can simply swap them out. So at the beginning over here in begin play, we're setting the ammo grenade. So we don't need to do that anymore. We can simply get rid of this one. We're already setting it when we are adding it to the equipment inventory in the function that we created. So add equipment to inventory over here, we're already setting the ammo types. So get rid of the one in event begin play, and then the second one is over here in the select equipment event that we just created. So we don't want to plug in our ammo grenade in here. We're going to grab our ammo equipment and then get a copy. And we simply want to get a copy from our active index. So let's grab our active equipment index and hook it up over here. And that way we should be good to go. I'm doing a quick check. Yeah, that should be good. So we can move these pins over and simply get rid of the old one. And let's do the same thing for the rest. So for the handle grenade ammo function, we want to do the same thing. So I can just copy this and paste it in here, plug it in. If we go a little bit further inside of this function, we are doing a subtract over here, subtract 1. So we can do this with an array as well, but if we are grabbing a copy, then we need to use the set array element to store the value again. So if we grab our ammo equipment, we can drag off here and we can also get a reference. And in this case, if we change the reference, it will automatically be stored in the array. So that way we don't have to update the array after that again. So make sure for this one you grab a reference and not a copy. Again, plug in the active equipment index and simply hook it up to the subtract node over here and get rid of the old variable. And that should be good. A little bit further, we have the update HUD call. So for this one, we can simply use the copy and we don't need the reference. We're not changing anything. So let's plug them in over here and get rid of the old one. And I don't think there's any more left. So that should be good. We have all of the arrays updated as well. Now, a shame, but we can't really test this right now, but I do want to cut off the episode over here. In the next episode, we're going to set everything up in the weapon wheel so we can actually select it and test if everything is working. I don't want to make this a 1.5 hour episode just for this. So I'll be back later with more. For today, this is going to be it. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like, and I'll be back soon for more. Talk to you later, guys. Bye bye.